difference when you breathe it in. So don't let the corporate media take you for a spin. This that morning show, they put you in the know. So I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, go, go. Yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Here in the dark, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Spitting the fact.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday and your post-debate recap. Not really. We're only going to cover a small portion of that train wreck and get into some other things that you really need to know, because here on this show, we practice critical thinking. So that's what we're going to do this morning. So get your coffee, get ready. And as always, we are live. So if you have comments or questions, particularly on our Digital Liberation Facebook page or on our Twitter account, we will see those comments. So weigh in, tell us where you think we're wrong, what we got right, your opinions, your feedback, all of it matters. So before we get into all of that, good morning, Andy. How are you?
Good. Much better than Joe Biden's bumhole.
Yeah, it was. And I tweeted this out yesterday, and I said this to the rest of our team. I said, whoever prepared Joe Biden for this debate, and there's always a team. Usually it's one person in the lead and then a couple people, and they practice back and forth. All of those people should have resigned. Absolutely, if they weren't already fired.
Yeah, but how do you prepare someone that's in cognitive decline?
And that's part of the problem, right? Because we know what Trump is about. We saw his debate performance during the entire primary and with Hillary. We knew what tactics he was going to use, and none of that changed. And there are some very specific things that you can do with someone who has cognitive ability to shut all of that down and, you know, actually speak to issues and talk to voters and make the appeal and ask for their vote. Biden got none of that done. None of it. And I think you're right, Andy. It's, you know, he was ill-equipped to enter the debate.
I don't know why people aren't asking the hard questions. Like, how many times did Biden say, okay, here's the deal? How many times did he say? I didn't watch it. Do you know how many times?
I didn't count. And
do
honestly,
you recall him saying that?
A couple times, but I got to be honest. I felt nauseous, literally nauseous, and turned it off at about 20 minutes. And then I caught some of the recap this morning.
Well, and we knew that, you know, it was going to be unavoidable to see excerpts of, you know, of Trump's best parts by the GOP and Biden's best part by the Dems. So there's somebody tweeted, I loved it. It said that this one thing you can say about this debate, it was successful in convincing independents to not vote.
Oh, absolutely. And the whole thing that I kept thinking as I'm watching this is bread and circuses. It literally, it was like this really bad geriatric MMA fight. And there were these toys that ThinkGeek used to have. There were little grandmas in wheelchairs with their little lap blankets and a cat, I think, on their lap. And they were RC race cars. And that's what it reminded me of. And someone else put out a tweet, and I forgot who it was, so my apologies. But they were like, Biden is 77, Trump is 70-something. The average age in Congress is 68, whereas the average voter in the United States is in their late 30s, early 40s. Do you see a disconnect here? And absolutely, I did, because neither one of them have a grasp on policy. Neither one of them have a grasp on the English language. So it was disappointing. I think, you know, usually after a debate we do a who won, who lost, and I honestly feel like the losers were 300 million.
Yeah, I don't think our video's up. I think I'm monitoring it, and it's just the title screen is up there.
I'm watching it on Facebook.
hang on, let me get it just a second. I just want to make sure. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'm watching it on our Facebook feed. Hey, if you're watching the video right now, can you weigh in and let us know? Or we're just recording this for posterity. Either way.
Well, no, it's going out. The audio is going out, but it's, as far as I could tell, it was just the screen.
No,
Just,
I'm watching video.
Let me catch up here.
Yeah, we'll let Andy catch up.
All right, we're good.
We're good.
Go ahead.
We're
Sorry
good.
for interruption.
No, it's fine. Do you remember when we first started all the technical issues we were having?
Yeah, which is kind of why it surprised me, but it's
Yeah.
I'm not sure why Facebook didn't update. But we're good.
We're good.
Okay.
We're good. So yeah, there's issues abound, but yeah, just my whole thought on the debates, you know, and you're gonna have Team MAGA Blue and Team MAGA Red. You're right, arguing that their side won, but I honestly feel like 300 million Americans lost last night in what I saw, and and it goes back to, like, Nancy Pelosi refuses to debate, and I think for the same reason she can't. So if you are an incumbent and you have something to lose, you don't participate in debates, which is why she is not debating Shahid Buttar. And I think she was right to say that Biden shouldn't debate Trump either. So I'm going to be a little surprised if we see the rest of the debate schedule happen, or if somebody's going to come up with some sort of excuse to back out at this point, because there's so much.
You know what? I would agree with that if we were under normal conditions. But quite honestly, I still maintain that I don't think the DNC wants to win this election. I think that they're asking for trouble if they do. Okay, look at what could potentially happen, right? You've got Biden, who they've made the case for soundly beat the socialist, right? And so that's, the narrative. But if Biden wins, let's say he wins, he's the new president, there's going to be a huge amount of pressure on him to almost instantly start to change all of the things that Trump did, right? And completely fund people during the pandemic, right? Because the whole push of the Biden campaign, the whole policy, the only policy position of the Biden campaign is orange man bad. And you've heard me say that before, right? So the response to that in the public is, okay, why was he bad? You have to do the opposite of what made him bad. And so that means a huge amount of money that's got to be spent into the economy to make people whole during the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. That are about to lose their homes, that can't feed their families, and can't even get a COVID test, right? Right off the bat. And this is a guy backed by a party that for the last 5 decades have claimed that the most important thing is balancing budgets, right? Austerity and monetary responsibility. And so that those two things don't jive. You've got a problem with that because Biden was pretty much, funded by donors for this campaign.
Well, what did Bernie say?
Have a reason that they want to be. So now you can't do what they want, what they say you have to do.
Right. No, and Bernie pointed that out during the primary, that Biden himself has 60 billionaires funding him. So who is he going to cater to? Not somebody like me. Absolutely not. So and then again, I look at my own experience with my congressman, and then my next door congressman, who still wears the blue jumpsuit, has now gone full on to the right and adopting Republican policy. But we were told that and this is Lauren Underwood, she is she's a paid shill for insurance companies, and has thrown people out of her office for even mentioning Medicare for all. She's gone full on Republican policy. But we were told that we could pressure these people to moving to the left, or at
Yeah.
least to center, and we're not seeing that. So where I still hold out a glimmer of hope is those down ballot races, and Warren Lynch is fantastic for pointing out all of the progressives who won their primary challenges who are now looking to be elected during this November election. So here's the other drawback, right? The top of the ticket usually produces the turnout. And if the top of the ticket is really bad, then everybody down ballot suffers. And then, of course, I want to talk to the liberals here. You guys are terrible with down ballot voting. You skip it. You skip all of it. Well, I don't know this person, so I'm going to... Please don't do that in this election, because we have district attorneys, we have judges, we have sheriffs. All of these people are on the ballot in every state and every county. And when you skip those races because you didn't bother to do your homework, then we lose. And like the clerks in Illinois, all the collar counties are run by Republicans because liberals don't vote down ballot. And that's a problem.
Of course it is, right? People thinking that you can push Biden left after he's elected is kind of on par with being shackled to a wall and saying, look, guy with the whip, I'm going to push you to not hit me as hard.
Right, while you're shackled. It doesn't work. So let's not have any illusions about what we're actually experiencing here. And this is why this particular episode is distractions and the debate. So the debate is a giant distraction from the issues that are going on. So let's recognize that. That was our bread and circuses. It was a complete and utter shit show, and it was fantastic for ratings, I guess. I don't know. I didn't check and see how many people actually tuned in, but I can't believe that anybody on the right or left was thrilled with that performance of their candidates. They'll say otherwise because they have to, but it was.
Oh yeah, all the debate did was it didn't change anybody's mind, right? Let's be reasonable about this. All it did was cement people in the views that they already have, right? It just told Trump supporters that he made a mockery of his opponent, right? It just told Biden supporters, it gave them a pearl clutching moment that, oh my God, we so have to get rid of that guy. He's so mean.
Oh,
Yeah. Like that's all it did. And anybody that was undecided shook their head and either turned it off or went and threw up in the toilet.
Right. And I want to be clear that when people say they're undecided, it's not a matter of they're undecided between Trump and Biden, because I think people are pretty well assessed at which of those two they would choose. Undecided means, am I voting at all? And I think that we need to recognize that. How do we get more people to vote? And so we saw over the last few weeks that both the DNC and the GOP are actively suppressing voter outreach and the ability to vote. So we saw that the Trump campaign in 2016, all this information has come out about how they were actually targeting minority votes, in particular the black vote, to keep them from voting. So it was getting them demoralized so that they wouldn't vote. And then Democrats are actually helping limiting polling places and who you can vote for. We saw them use so much energy, effort, and money to get Green Party candidates off the ballot. What are you worried about, right? So why?
Well, that's the problem, right? Like the whole push on that. People that think they understand why that occurred, right? It's not. Mm-hmm. It's not because they're afraid that the Green Party is going to potentially steal the election from Biden, right? These people, they're assuming that people that won't have the ability to vote Green are going to automatically vote Dem, mm-hmm. right? Which is totally ludicrous anyway. It's not about that at all.
Yeah.
It's about marginalizing any party outside the duopoly that thinks that they have a viable chance. That's all it's about. It's not about votes, because the GOP wants to win and the Dems don't want to win. So they're agreed on that, right? The only thing they don't want is for third parties to get some kind of grasp on any tiny bit of power, because that's counter to their narrative. That's all it's about.
Well, let's pull that apart, Andy, because I think you bring up a good point. If we had more than one party on the ballot, or if independents actually had an equal opportunity to ballot access, wouldn't that push the Democratic Party to the left more so than me falling in line?
Of course.
So shouldn't that be the effort? Shouldn't we be about democracy? And I think I was really disappointed to see all of these high-profile liberals applaud when the Democratic Party got the Green Party taken off the ballot in several states. I'm like, you are playing right into fascism by supporting this. And it's just kind of a surreal moment where it's so easy to point at the right because they are off the cliff. But we see liberals doing the same thing. And I always call back to a survey that was done a couple of years ago where it talked about people who consider themselves conservative are more open to authoritarian rule. And that was alarming. But I was the only one to point out, wait a second, look, there's 35% of Democrats or liberals who are saying the same thing, that they would prefer an authoritarian rule where, they don't have to think. And this is where we run the risk. And we see the evidence when you had somebody like Addy Barkin, whatever his name is, the gentleman out of California, when he was applauding that the Democrats in Wisconsin got the Green Party. And I'm like, no, Addy, what are you doing? And not that I want to shit on Addy, but I always go back to follow the money. I remember when Addy had GoFundMes for $1,000 a month in medical care. And then the minute he endorsed Elizabeth Warren, all of that went away. And I have yet to see another one. So if Addy's got another GoFundMe out there to cover his own medical expense while he's decrying Medicare for all and supporting other people who are against Medicare for all, please let me know. Send me the link. Because I don't think it exists anymore. And what that says to me is sheepdogging, sellout, co-opt. And the evidence of it is celebrating fascism and a denial of democracy. So, not that I want to, I do. I guess I do want to call out people who are sheepdogging other people while they themselves are benefiting, because we see it in the entire Trump campaign. So one other thing I wanted to touch on, in this one I took very personally, because I remember when Obama got elected, I had family members who delighted in sending me some really horrific racist memes. There was Obama with the bone through his nose like he was an African, and all sorts of horrific things they were sending to me.
These are family members?
Family members, yeah. And now I'm starting to see it happen again, except these are coming from liberals. And it was really upsetting to me because these are people who know me. And I'm like, for those who are not yet aware, I'm one of the few on our team that adheres to a religious path. Most of us are humanists or whatever your spiritual path is, or atheist or whatever. Everybody has a path, whether it's a recognized religion or not. And mine happens to be Catholicism. So when you had the Supreme Court nomination come out of Amy Barrett, I was getting those same kind of memes, but this time from friends and family on the left, who were engaging in the same type of misinformation and really heinous stuff, knowing full well that if they had questions, they could have come to me, right? Or, you know, the Catholic Catechism is online. Everything that a Catholic believes is right there. The Vatican has it. You can search through it, whatever. And I strongly encourage, I posted a link on our chat. I strongly encourage everyone to go out and look at it, because if you know the path and tenets that a person adheres to, whether it's a secular humanism or whatever else, we're supposed to be helping each other with that chosen path. And if I am a Catholic, or Amy Barrett is a Catholic, and we have chosen this path, if you know the rules of that path, you can help us stay to that path in our personal situation. For example, when in Indiana, I saw then Governor Pence with a line of nuns signing a bill that denied marriage equality for gay people. It made me angry, because each and every one of those nuns is held to the same rule that I am held to. And our catechism, if you want to look this up, it's number 2358, 2358. It says explicitly that no Catholic may discriminate against a gay person for any reason. Any reason. And here you had this little line of cute little nuns standing there with Pence, violating their own tenet of their own faith, the faith that they had pledged to and given their lives to. So in that context, in my faith, it allows people to check me on it. And my husband will tell you, I have literally thrown the catechism at a priest who said something that was heretical against our entire faith, because that's my job, right? So I want to share something with you that was shared with me. And I was really, I think, personally offended, but I'm trying to be patient with these things. So here are the two memes that are going around social media. And you remember the show, what was it? The Handmaid's Tale, which is fiction. But they took this Supreme Court nominee and they put her in that clothing. And this is where the liberals are distracting from the real truth of the information. And it is a horrible way to go about doing things. And I think, to me, it shows that there are so many Republicans now who call themselves Dems that this is a familiar tactic. That is what I choose to believe. So here they took Amy Barrett and put her in this fictional character role, and they keep calling out that, well, she believes she should be subservient, and she believes that she's a handmaid. Not the TV show. Not the handmaid from the TV show. What that means is a helper, and in my faith, that is actually part of a prayer, right? So if you have any question about the role of husband and wife, or the role of a relationship, go to the catechism. Do not go to a Facebook meme, right? Because if you look in there, while it says, wives subservient to your husband, the very next passage is, husbands, die daily for your wives. That's what it says. So the whole implication is you are doing away with your pride. You are doing away with everything that you are and giving it to the other person. And I personally have no qualms with marriage equality. I support it wholeheartedly, because in this country, we have a separation of religion and government. And marriage is a contract under the government. If you don't believe me, just try to get married without a license. Doesn't work. So the other thing that I thought was interesting in this whole argument was, oh God, she's this Catholic. Well, here are other Catholics sitting on the Supreme Court right now. Do you notice the ones that are liberal justices? Does that not matter? And then Andy and I talked about in episodes prior, this whole idea that these justices vote on a monolithic path is ridiculous. So please go out to the SCOTUS blog. They keep all of the stats on how these justices are voting, and even Ginsburg herself sided with Alito and other right-wing justices many, many times, and did so against civil liberties, particularly against our indigenous Native American peoples. So,
well, yeah, I think that deserves being talked about briefly again, because it's being used as a weapon by the liberals to say that this is Trump's third justice that he's putting on the Supreme Court. We can't allow that to happen. Vote Biden, right? Which is in itself ludicrous, because the reason for the Supreme Court is to interpret the existing laws. And if your laws are on the books, the justices can be left-leaning or right-leaning, but the Supreme Court is not a political entity, right? They interpret the law as it is written. If the laws change, then they interpret those changes. So that's basically just the way it works. And you can see that when you go to see these laws, that's over and over again how they've decided on issues. It's not about their political leanings, it's about the law.
That's exactly right. And you're actually channeling Jeffrey, who, good morning, Jeffrey, weighed in, and he said, focus on jurisprudence, not religion. And that is exactly what they're supposed to do. So, Andy, you and I talked about it before. If you don't like, or you feel some sort of risk because of a judicial nominee, change the law. And we opened this show talking about those down ballot races, the people who actually write the laws. That is where you focus. So you're right. So we have covered, I think, sufficiently the distractions between the debate and this Supreme Court nomination, both the left and the right. So what are they distracting us from? And this is what's really important. So first and foremost, almost the entire Trump administration is up on their court cases against all of them right now. And I think that is what we're being distracted from, because the findings of these cases and the rulings will affect not just the Trump administration and specific individuals, but on the left too. Because what we see is a steady, gradual march to the right. And when Obama left, or when Obama got elected, everyone's like, hey, are you going to do anything about Rumsfeld and all of these war crimes? And his response was, well, we're not going to look backward, we're going to go forward. Meaning, I don't want them coming after me later for war crimes, so I'm not going to do anything about them. Same thing happens with these court cases. When you have, let's say you do get Biden elected, Biden's team does not want to be held to the same standard as a regular person, so they may not want these cases to be decided against Trump either, because, all right, so let's go through some of the cases. Here's the easy one. Brad Parscale, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but this particular, yes, let's make him super Italian. He was head of the Trump campaign in 2016. And again, this is where all the information came out, and the Daily Mail and the Guardian released the information about how their campaign was using data. They were using Cambridge Analytica to suppress votes and all of this. Well, this guy, Brad, made bank by doing it. Well, he got Trump elected. So he got $40 million, but he is now being investigated for fraud, for stealing all that money. So they think that he took $40 million from the campaign and $10 million from the Republican National Committee. So this guy's having a bad day, right? So what happens when you are up under investigation for multiple things? Well, he was having a crisis and he got arrested. His wife called the police. because she feared for his safety. The key phrase is, in Florida and other states, this person poses a danger to themselves and others. And she was worried that he was going to commit suicide, so she called the police. Here's where it got interesting, at least in my mind, is when he got arrested, the police were able to call him and get him to come outside the house. And he came outside the house. And then they gave him instructions, get down on the ground. And it was like, I don't know, 2 to 4 seconds. Well, first, let me back up. We got the body cam footage like immediately of his arrest, which doesn't happen. And then, so they gave him the instructions to get on the ground and didn't give him enough time to comply. So they kind of tripped him, tackled him, put him to the ground, put him in handcuffs, and now he's serving a 72-hour observation. And everyone was just floored, so appalled at the police brutality of this white man. And I'm like, wait a second, he didn't get tased, he didn't get shot, he's still alive. So I don't have a problem with this particular arrest, right? Especially when they went to the home and they knew that there were weapons in the home and the wife thought she heard him fire a gun earlier. So I have no problem with police officers and the way that they handled this, because they were able to get him out of the house and apprehend him safely and take him to medical professionals who will watch him and give him the 72 hours of observation and make sure that he doesn't die. That's okay. But yet what we see is both CNN and all these other channels are saying that his arrest was just so horrific that the brutality. No, that's what we want to see happen, right? He wasn't injured, didn't have a break, or he might have a little, he wasn't wearing a shirt, so he might have hit the pavement a little hard, but there's no concussion, no strangulation, no chokehold, no taser, no nothing. So
no 30 bullets pumped into the house.
Right. So I kind of got a chuckle out of the audacity to put your hands on a white man. No, this is so this is one piece of it. Now, what happens in Brad's case is important, and make a mental note of this, because he, like most consultants, expected to get paid, but how was he doing it? And what was he claiming, and where did that money go? So if you are a MAGA person and a Trump supporter, you should be particularly interested in that case, because those were your donations, presumably, right? So what was he doing? He lives in a mansion in Florida, whereas before he was but apparently he's living it up on your campaign donations. So pay attention to that, because that matters not just for the Trump campaign, but for all the other campaigns too, because I guarantee you there are consultants who work on political campaigns who look across the aisle or look at something else and go, oh, well, they're getting away with it. We should do that. Yeah, I know what the law says, but well, if they did it, we can do it too. So pay attention to that one. And then this case, which tickles me to no end, Eric Trump. So I talked about this before. There are not one, not two, but 3 emoluments cases against Trump himself and his corporations and what he's doing to enrich his family. And now we know why, because dude's broke. And not just broke, but deeply in debt. And so these emolument cases are important because we have seen unequivocally where he's using the office of the president for personal enrichment. And this is a case where next week Eric Trump has to go and testify. He has to. Now, I don't know if it's in person or they're going to do it through a virtual call or whatever, but Eric Trump's attorney said that it was an inconvenient timing and he just couldn't do it. But the judge ruled that, no, this is not inconvenient in any way, shape, or form. You're going to be here by the 7th, so it's anticipated that he'll be testifying on the 6th. Now, here's what's important was that James, didn't capture his first name, I'm sorry, but the attorney James launched the civil investigation into potential fraud in Donald Trump's business dealings in March 2019. And so they've been delaying all this time. So this whole argument that it's inconvenient because the election is complete and utter bullshit, and the judge saw through that. So this is a pattern of behavior with all of Trump's lawsuits. Delay, 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 and hope the other person runs out of money. And this is probably where a lot of his personal fortune went to these legal cases. So Michael Cohen told Congress that the president had repeatedly inflated the value of his assets. So do you remember that exchange between AOC and Michael Cohen when he was testifying before Congress? And she was asking some very pointed questions about his involvement in the Trump companies and overinflating their values. Well, this is the follow-up on it, this case. And this is in the Southern District of New York, the federal level. So again, your down ballot races matter because all of these justices and appointments come from these lower courts. So who you put on these courts matters for these cases. So that'll be fun. I'm watching that one on C-SPAN. I can tell you that right now. So then the other cases, like I said, most of the entire Trump administration is on trial, either named as a defendant or in the periphery. So this is the other one that I thought was pretty telling. Oh, did I not put it up here? The Flynn case. Yes, I did. I did my homework. So, do you remember Michael Flynn?
Vaguely.
Vaguely. So he was the guy who pled guilty early in the Trump White House. It was like within the first year, this guy went to jail and Trump pardoned him. So this case, this one, really focus on this one because this is not just about Michael Flynn, but this is about Donald Trump himself in the capacity of president and William Barr as head of the Department of Justice. So this is why I say if somebody is not already named as a defendant, they are on the periphery. And so this case, while it is Michael Flynn, William Barr is behind the scenes. So he's up next. He's on deck for the next one. And the reason this case is so important was because there's a provision in U.S. law within the Constitution that you cannot use your office, again, for personal enrichment, but you can't do political pardons, right? So it's not like I'm emperor and all of my friends and those people who support me get specialized treatment or a different set of laws. That's not how it's supposed to work in this country. So what happened was Flynn pled guilty to lying to the FBI, which is a crime. And then Trump went ahead and pardoned him. And I'm not sure why they thought they could do this. It might have something to do with, you remember Bush and Scooter Libby, where Scooter was made the scapegoat for the Valerie Plame stuff, and he got pardoned by Bush. Okay, so that might have led Barr to think that, this is okay, it's no problem. But Barr himself put himself in the position of being the personal attorney for Trump while serving as the head of the Department of Justice. That cannot happen, but he did it. So this case focuses on on Michael Flynn. However, behind the scenes, when you read what they're arguing, they're actually going after William Barr, and they're going to use Trump to do it. So I pulled out this really nice quote from the article, and this is from John Gleason, who's a former judge. And if you look up his history and tenure, the guy knows what he's talking about. And his quote was, "Not for nothing, but this crime was committed in the West Wing." So that right there should pique your interest that not only is Trump himself implicated, but the other people sitting in the room with him, which was William Barr, are also implicated. So it's not just, this case has a potential, if the emolument stuff and the tax fraud doesn't put Trump himself in jail, this one could. And not just Trump, but William Barr and everyone else who helped. So orange may be the new orange.
So this is more of, I think the problem with what's going on is that, all Trump has to do and say that he believes that, you can't touch a sitting president, that it has to wait until he steps down from office before he can be arrested, right? Is that the case? Because I don't know.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I've been looking for it too. And obviously I'm not an attorney, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but you always see those questions, and I'm looking through all the law blogs. Can a sitting president be tried for something? And so far everyone's like, maybe.
Well, there's no precedent, right? There's nothing it's never happened before. Like, I mean, there may have been precedent in Nixon had he not stepped down.
And
right?
that is the key. Everyone's like, wait a second, what happened to the Republican Party? They went and said, let's not damage the brand. Nixon, we need you to resign. And he did. And they made a deal. Do you remember Nixon going to jail?
No, of course not.
Because he resigned. But in this case, there's so much building against the entire Trump family. Like, for example, and this one just floors me completely. Anybody who runs a business, I don't care if you're a plumber, an electrician, or a corporate CEO of a multinational corporation, you know that you cannot write off consultant fees for one of your executives. It just, nah. You can't write off haircuts either. But Trump did. And he implicated his own daughter in that too. So both of them are up on tax fraud. So we do have precedents for people going to jail for tax fraud. From Wesley Snipes to Al Capone, just, they're going to get their money. So, and you're going to get jail time. But we've never had a situation where you have multiple allegations of crimes as well as multiple ongoing court cases for criminal behavior. So, and I can't find anywhere where someone unequivocally says yes or no from a credible position, because you're right. We've never had this before. So it's, may you live in interesting times. So let's continue on with some of the other distractions, and I think this one is personal for so many of us. Oh, by the way, we still have a global pandemic, and I pulled this data.
Oh yeah, that thing.
Yeah, I pulled this data like 2-3 days ago, so the numbers might be definitely higher, but we surpassed 1 million deaths. That's 1 million families worldwide who lost somebody. 1 million. And then we have 33 million total cases. So those are 33 million people and 33 million families exponentially who are dealing with potential lasting effects, potential risks, all of these things that come with it. And so we have the whole ancillary of stories about people who have lost jobs, not just in this country, but around the world, because they were off work. And of course, an employer can't wait for you to recover, so they just fire you. And in this country, so you rack up the medical debts as well as being unemployed, because people just can't take care of each other and be responsible and wear a mask. And we're helping in this country Wall Street, but not Main Street. So yeah. And Andy, I don't know if you want to comment on what's going on in Canada. I mean,
well, we've found over the last couple of days, not yesterday, but the day before, we had this, in the province of Ontario, we had the single most number of COVID cases since the beginning of the pandemic, right? So, and this is while the weather is still reasonably warm. I sent our kids back to school, relaxed all our rules. You know, everybody's in phase 4 now. And now we did all of that for nothing because we had to rush back to society without actually thinking that people should want to stay alive. But now we're looking back in Canada of going back into phase 2, right? Almost instantly.
Okay.
And so that means that we're not under complete lockdown like we were in, end of March, April, May. But, if things continue the way they are, that's a very conceivable thing, especially as the winter months come around. And the other thing that people don't realize is that the virus, by its nature, because of the family it's in and because of the way that it propagates, that it's constantly mutating. So if you were unfortunate enough to be infected by the coronavirus, in the spring, and you survived that means nothing if you think that you're immune to it, because it's mutated so many times that your body won't see it as the same thing as it was before, right? Much like influenza or the common cold mutate, and they don't know how to properly protect people because they can't see into the future and see what the makeup of the most common strain of influenza that's going to be coming down the pike when the cold weather hits, right? So thinking that herd immunity is a thing or that antibodies are going to protect you isn't necessarily the case. So we're looking at shutting down society again, right? Except in the US, where it's more important to lose your life than to have the market affected.
Oh, well, if you're a patriot, absolutely. You will give your life for the stock market. Yeah, and I think part of the problem that we have here is you can test negative today and test positive tomorrow. So we just don't know. And I think based on what I saw in the debates, when that particular question came up, I did not have a good feeling about either side when it came to managing the pandemic, because they were both talking over each other and then both saying the same thing and then pointing fingers at each other. So I didn't get a good feeling from either person. I kept looking for the adults in the room and I didn't see it. So I think it comes down to us, and I've said this before, it comes down to me taking care of my family and my community. And this means washing my hands, social distancing. I mean, serious social distancing, wearing a goddamn mask. I can't tell you, I've been to a couple different stores and we're gloved up, masked up, ready to go. And some yahoo is still trying to walk into the store with no mask. At this point, we've all lost somebody. We've all had somebody get sick. We know about it. It is not a goddamn hoax. And I'll tell you, I have no problem speaking up to that person, and I will fight you at the door. I guarantee it. I've done it. Grocery store, Home Depot, all of those places. Absolutely. Because all that is required of you is so little to take care of your own family and your community, and how absolutely selfish of you to not. So yeah, this is where I'm going to go back to the old-fashioned make America great again with shame, and I will call you out, and I hope everyone else does it too. So so the last thing that I want to get to that we are actually being distracted from, and this one is so important: evictions. So what is happening in this country right now People are being evicted from their homes because they've been affected by COVID. They have utility shutoffs, and in a lot of states, if your utility gets shut off because you can't pay the bill, you are first in line for evictions. So this is happening in Illinois. It's happening all across the country. And one thing that came out that people may not be aware of is the CDC issued guidelines to not evict people because it spreads COVID. And so Trump signed an executive order to forward this, that you could not be evicted, to put a moratorium on evictions. However, there are some things that you really need to know, and I put a link in the comments here. To be eligible for the protection, it is such a narrow field. You've got to be, if you're married, under 200,000 in income, if you're single, under 100,000 in income, which is pretty generous. However, you've got to demonstrate that you sought government help to pay for rent and declare that you cannot pay because of COVID-19 hardships. So you've got to make a paper trail. Even if it's denied, you have to make an effort, make phone calls, make emails, do whatever you need to do to show that you tried to get assistance for it. And then you're likely to become homeless if evicted, which is most of us, because a lot of us don't have family members who can give up floor space, let alone move your entire family in. So if this is you and this affects you, start your paper trail now. Now here's where it also gets important. There are currently 26 lawsuits fighting Trump's executive order. 26. And so I wrote down some of them. So in Nevada, the landlords have filed a lawsuit to stop the moratoriums. They want to be able to evict you because they're all about the money, right? They're saying, well, we're not getting our rents, so we can't pay the mortgage, so we deserve to kick these people out, spread COVID just so long as we can pay our mortgage, because then what happens to us? We don't get this moratorium. So this is where the policy started out with the right idea, but did not follow through on the full cause and effect. So now you have landlords who are citing against their own tenants. That's Nevada. Memphis, Tennessee. There's 3 more lawsuits there. And then in Georgia, the National Apartment Association, a lobbyist group for landlords, sided on with 3 existing lawsuits there. Also in Ohio, there are multiple lawsuits challenging Trump's executive order. So I want to give credit where credit is due to follow through on the moratorium, because that is what we've been asking for since February. However, the follow through isn't there. So in order, Andy, you know this, in order for policy to be effective, you've got to follow the logical chain. Otherwise, you're going to have somebody like the National Association of not renters, but what is this? The National Apartment Association fighting what is a good thing for families because they're so worried about their members not getting paid. Right?
Exactly. Like, why are you taking one group in society and propping them up and taking another group and not doing so with them, right?
Right. So rather than landlords working together with their renters, you have now pitted them against each other. This is American fighting American in a global pandemic. And this should never happen. And to me, this is just, I want to say a lack of foresight, but we've seen way too many times where a policy position is put out there, like the Affordable Care Act. It's sold as something good for people, but now you are pitting those who have against those who have not. And you're making those people fight each other while the people at the top are collecting profits. And that's what I see happening here. So I hope that the landlords get the relief and a mortgage moratorium, because let's not forget that $1 trillion per day was offered to the mortgage holders in February, March, and April. That's Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, all of those big banks got the money they needed to remain solvent, and they are the mortgage holders. But the landlords didn't get what they needed, and the tenants didn't get what they needed. So this is the cause and effect.
Right, right. You can say that there's a moratorium on having to pay rent or having to pay your utilities, because, and not follow up on it, because that actually doesn't cost any of your donors any money, right? The second that you want to make everybody whole because of that policy, that's when, you know, it's counter narrative to the neoliberal austerity model, right? And that's why they don't want to do it. Like, I mean, the quote unquote savior in all of this, Sleepy Joe Biden, is already said that, you know, the cupboard is bare, right? The bullshit neoclassical argument that we don't have any money because, so, you know, this is going to be hard times, right? But it's going to be rugged individualism back in the U.S. when the GOP has shown that they're not afraid to use the power of the purse, right, through tax cuts, and not sink the economy, because they seem to understand MMT better than the Dems do, right? I think that's the whole crux of this, is that the party that you think has your back in all of this, right, is really the one that's screwing society more, right? Like the whole Bill Clinton era, you know, surplus where they eliminated the deficit, right, was responsible for everything that happened after during George Bush, right? And that's because they stopped funding the economy.
Well, they didn't fund things that regular folk need. And just real quick before we close out, good morning to Lee. Lee posted a number of comments, and one of them that I really want to call out here. Thank you, Lee. But he said, I've heard some slumlord types who will have utilities cut off and then have the property condemned to force people out without going through the long eviction process. Wow. That's just downright evil. There's no other way to say it, you know. And I was watching a case, and I'm still doing my homework on this one, but the case of the salmon run in Alaska, where a coal mine is trying to get permits, and this is the last natural salmon run that supports this entire ecosystem, including humans, and they're more worried about the profit than destroying the planet. And this is not hyperbole when I say destroying the planet. When you remember this from elementary school, when you take one critical piece out, what happens to the rest of the ecosystem? It all falls apart, including people. So when I was reviewing some of that, I was like, that's just downright evil. There's no other way to say it. How can you as a person look at all of this and say, no, it's fine. No, this is evil. This is a mental illness. This is downright wrong. Same thing comes from a landlord who is so focused on getting... Okay, so on a personal level, you got to play what if, because we are so bound by the constraints we put on ourselves, right? If you're a landlord, what happens if you lose a building? What happens if you default on your mortgage payment and you lose that building? Let's go through it, right? So, will you die? Is your family going to die? No. So what we're actually arguing about, put it in its proper context. If you as a mortgage holder on an apartment building, let's say it's a 4-unit, 6-unit building, and you cannot pay the mortgage because your tenants cannot pay you, and you understand that this is an absolutely unprecedented plague, and you're working with your tenants as best you can, but you lose that building, what have you lost? Doesn't matter, ultimately. To the things that are most important to you, what have you lost? And this is where we need to be focused on ourselves as individuals, right? If you are so focused on debt, if you are so focused that I will lose something of material value, that you're willing to sacrifice someone else's life, you are disordered. And you need to fix that. So this is one of, I think, the silver linings in this pandemic, is that it's forcing us to reassess what is really important. And this is another example when we talk about moratorium on evictions and landlords and who holds the mortgage. It's just one of those things. So, all right, now that I'm totally depressed, Andy.
Good job. Good job.
Woo!
We have to remember that the one thing that this pandemic has shown us is that U.S. can't deny that they have the power of the purse, right, to fund the economy the way that they need to, right? And if people are going hungry and getting evicted, losing their jobs and losing their health care, those are all political decisions because they don't need to happen.
No, there's no reason for any of this to happen. There's no good reason for any of it to happen. And so this is what we're being distracted from. The conscious decisions that others are making to make our situation worse. And there's no reason that it has to be this way. None. So I hope that we've been able to illustrate to you what to look out for. So when you see these distractions and the corporate media trying to get you angry and agitated and spun up over something that really is a non-issue, that you'll be able to recognize it and focus on those things that are most important, and that's your personal safety, the health and well-being of your family, and your community. So let's fight together and get what we need for each other. So any closing thoughts, Andy?
Well, just that I'm taking this seriously, and I got a haircut at 1 o'clock and a dentist appointment at 2:30.
All right, be safe.
And might need to last me all winter.
Well, I told you before, I've had one haircut this year, just one.
Yeah, you can get away with it. I just end up looking like Kramer, a cross between Kramer and Cousin It.
I do look like Cousin Hitch, though. So, all right. On that note, we'll get out of here. We'll be back here on Friday. Yeah, if you have any topics you want us to cover, I have a lot of people who send me a ton of topics, and I try to get through all of them. But if there's something in particular, just send us an email or post it on our Facebook page. We'll get to it. So, all right, we'll see you back here on Friday.
Okay.
Remember the dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Speeding the facts, how it's supposed to be. Remember the dog, we keep it energy.